hell is going on?
We end tonight with a $1 million listing. A luxury apartment building in San Francisco is listing towards the Pacific and sinking quickly.
The views from the Millennium Tower were well worth the $2.1 million Pat and Jerry Dobson paid for their two-bedroom apartment, they say, until they learned their 58-story building is cracking and sinking.
At this point, the building has sunk 16 inches.
Ray Sullivan is a geologist with San Francisco State University. He leads tours of the city's sinking and leaning buildings. And when it comes to the Millennium Tower,
I would be concerned if it accelerates and the tilting continues.
Well, you haven't heard too much about the drought lately, but tonight, a reminder that it still haunts us. Despite last year's record winter, one part of California is still sinking.
During the drought between 2012 and 2016, the San Joaquin Valley was subsiding at the fastest rate in the world.
This is where valley subsidence was discovered years ago, right around El Nido, a town more famous for its elevation than its population because agriculture's demand for water here has sent pumps ever deeper into the ground, causing the valley floor to sink by dozens of feet.
I had to add some length onto these pipes because I couldn't open the door anymore.
Canal skirts buckled, bridges failed, and homes started sprouting cracks. But the hope was that last year's big winter might deliver some help. It's an incredible idea that this big chunk of the valley is rising and falling, sort of like it's drawing a breath every year.
Scientists call it a tectonic time bomb. The Hayward Fault runs through the East Bay area of San Francisco and right through Oakland. A new study looked into the potentially devastating impact of a major earthquake on the Hayward Fault. And Carter Evans shows us the worst case scenario.
it was one of the deadliest disasters ever to hit the U.S. On this very day in 1906, the great San Francisco earthquake killed more than 3,000 and destroyed half the city. As bad as it was, and as bad as subsequent earthquakes have been, the Bay Area is now bracing for something even worse.
It's coming. It's not if, it's when.
A new report from the U.S. Geological Survey says the biggest danger may be the Hayward Fault, because 2 million people live directly on top of it. As seen in this animation, the Hayward Fault could unleash a magnitude 7.0 earthquake, capable of catastrophic damage. More than 800 deaths, 18,000 injuries, and with gas lines severed and water pipes broken, hundreds of fires could ignite, burning at least 50,000 homes.
Those staggering numbers are not unchangeable. We can save lives and reduce risk by taking action now.
Cities haven't ignored the threat. Thousands of buildings have been retrofitted. When UC Berkeley learned that the fault ran right underneath its football stadium, the school installed seismic blocks and completely rebuilt most of the stands.
Are you saying if we got struck by a big earthquake here, we could actually see the stadium split in half?
So yeah, the fault rupture would come blasting right through here at 7,000 miles an hour and offset the football field. So all those nice straight lines would be offset to the right.
And the fault line comes right up through the stands here. This is where the stadium will split when the big one hits. Over the last 1,900 years, there have been 12 major quakes along this fault line. They happen on average about once every 150 years. This year marks exactly 150 years since the last quake.
When it comes to the big one, experts agree that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. One of the scenarios calls for a 7.8 earthquake on the San Andreas, and that would rock Southern California for hundreds of miles, and the damage could last months or even years.
Hurricanes, fires, earthquakes. Over the last few months, we've had an all too real glimpse of what Mother Nature is truly capable of. And just how quickly a disaster can turn major cities upside down.
Debris everywhere, roof totally gone, rooms exposed.
Harvey is no joke.
Something that should serve as a staunch reminder to Southern California that we could be next.
Earthquake shaking expected in 57 seconds.
When you live here in Southern California, you just have to say, it will happen.
Earthquake expert Dr. Lucy Jones says there are more than 300 faults in Southern California, and we all live within 5 miles of at least one of those faults. While any of these faults are capable of jolting SoCal, it's no surprise to those of us who live here. Experts point to the San Andreas as the one most likely to produce a large quake.
When we have a big San Andreas earthquake, it'll be felt in Las Vegas and in Arizona. It may be felt in the Bay Area.
The scenario projects that the San Andreas could yield a 7.8 magnitude quake, 11 times stronger than the 7.1 that hit Mexico City in September, and 44 times stronger than the 1994 Northridge quake.
My bed is under that pile right there.
If a 7.8 quake ruptures the San Andreas, it could hit the Salton Sea and then run 186 miles to Lake Hughes, shaking everything in its path and potentially setting off other faults, causing additional quakes.
Everything that crosses the fault will be broken. Roads, railways, gas pipelines, water systems, electric transmission lines, all of these things cross the fault and will be now offset 10 to 30 feet.
That means roads and freeways fractured, landslides triggered, water, power, sewage, communications severed.
Modern life is a system of systems, and every one of them is vulnerable. It's not about dying, it's about being bankrupt and losing your home and having no place to be.
If this happens.
So if that scenario hits, we're looking at about 1,600 fires approximately igniting.
In the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, 90% of the damage was caused by fire. In 2011, Japan's quake caused another issue, a tsunami. Is that something we need to worry about?
To create a tsunami, the fault has to be underwater, and it has to change the shape of the seafloor. So Southern California does not have an offshore fault capable of doing that.
And the experts stress we might not know when or exactly where, but we know a big quake is coming. And now it's up to you to be prepared.
We want people to do something today to be better prepared for tomorrow.
The earthquake is inevitable, but the disaster is not. And we can make a difference by the choices we make that'll make it be a lot less damaging.
Colorado has broken its most destructive fire record 4 times in 4 years. We're seeing fire behaviors that we've never seen before.
Copy. I think this fire is spreading to the Flying W Ranch. Their buildings, I know it's a thick cover in there. That's going to be one of your big concerns right now. Copy that. We are not going to worry about Flying W. I want no units back in the Flying W Ranch area. Riker from Engine 15. Go ahead. I think you might want to get out of that area.
I stood in that field and I'm watching, and I had a 100-foot wall of flame from north to south, and that's all I saw. I have embers the size of my fist flying by me on fire, and I have never seen anything in that, even close to that.
All companies, on Command 6, we are leaving the area. I repeat, our fallback position is Chapeta Park. We are leaving the area. Pull out now.
I knew my crews were getting out of the area. I had called for a retreat. We knew that we didn't have all the civilians out of that area because at this point they were still, it wasn't a mandatory evacuation until about an hour before that when we pulled the hook. I'm worried about the firefighters. I don't know how many civilians we have in the area, and we're literally leaving as that fire is less than 100 yards behind us, 100 foot high, and visibility now is down to the front of my hood of the truck that I'm in. I can't see the next vehicle in front of me. The fire blowing at 65 miles an hour, there's nothing we could have done. I actually had people say that have much more wildland training than me, you know, we're not too sure why you evacuated because we would have probably stayed in place. But the more we think about it, if we would have stayed in place, we would have killed firefighters. I've got hundreds of houses on fire. I've got this huge fire blowing up on top of me. In my mind, I thought, okay, in the 20-minute mark, we're going to send the crews back in, and that was Lieutenant Pellegrino and his crew. Without hesitation, they went right back into that area for me. As they advanced through that, they called back to me and they told me, and then I would backfill. I would send 2-3 engines.
Ryan W. Majestic, I can see 8 to 10 structures on fire, something safe, something. Task Force 2 to Riker, we've got way too many houses to be able to take these on. We're going to have to do structure protection only. We have so many going.
I've got eyes on the top of Wilson. Everything's pretty much burned to the ground.
Can I send units into that area? Are there other salvageable houses?
We're driving through 1, 2, about 10 houses that are stick frame all the way to the ground.
I don't know what I would do. But let's go back to Bill Pellegrino. I've known that man for 28 years. And I know his wife, I know his children. And I'm thinking, I'm putting these people in probably the biggest harm they've ever faced in their careers. And I'm the man putting them up there.